Time now to take a look at the daily press review, and to help us do that, we have Nicholas Rushworth with us here in the studio. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Hi, Jeannie.
Today, you're going to focus exclusively on the tensions in Ukraine. Now, let's start, first of all, with the French front pages.
And let's go straight away to Le Figaro. Here you can see the headline of that paper this Monday: Ukraine goes on the offensive against pro-Russian activists. And it is arguing that what we've got here is a situation that is a lot more complex and a lot more explosive than events we saw in Crimea. Its editorial is arguing that there is the threat, Jeannie, and get this, I was quite struck by this, of a war like the one we saw in the Balkans, the breakup of the Yugoslavia 2 decades ago. It points out the obvious thing that this is the largest country between the EU and Russia. Let's go to the Catholic Daily here in France, La Croix, which is leading on Ukraine as well, with the headline Ukraine l'escalade. Now, that paper asks whether the escalation in tension that we've seen now, especially over the weekend, is a way of Moscow being able to set the conditions for diplomatic talks that we'll see this Thursday in Geneva. It says that the people of Ukraine really counted on Europe. By that, they mean the European Union. And, of course, Europe must not disappoint the people of Ukraine.
Nick, you also took a look at the Ukrainian press and the Russian press. Tell us about that.
Well, one of the best places to go for coverage on the ground is the Kiev Post. And it this Monday, in its opinion page, is actually taking a story from The Guardian in the UK, which is probably the best thing to read this Monday as far as I'm concerned. It's by James Meek. And you can see the headline there: most Ukrainians are neither loyal Russians nor fascists. Now, he's making the point that a lot of the discussion now is polarized, and that is actually serving Putin well. It's actually bolstering his idea that on the one hand you've got a Ukraine which is either a loyal vassal to Russia or a Ukraine that is somehow fascist. That whole piece made me think of the Russian press, as you say, and I went to Pravda, which still exists. Pravda, of course, the communist mouthpiece of years ago. And there you can see just that expression there about fascism. The headline: anti-fascist freedom fighters take the initiative. And the argument there is that these freedom fighters have taken up the cause to fight against the scourge of the junta that is in charge now in Kiev. It says that Russia is being portrayed as, what is it, the cowboy in the black hat, the eternal bad boy. It's all a load of staggering propaganda from the West.
Now, also in the Russian papers, you saw another opinion piece that was actually arguing that Russia's in a weak position.
Well, this is also another striking argument, isn't it? This is a piece by the writer Alexei Bayer in the Moscow Times, who says annexation of Crimea and eastern Ukraine can only damage Russia's economy. Sanctions can only damage Russia's economy. The Russia is weak militarily as well. So a new Cold War will be just suicidal for Russia. The writer says that while the world back in the Soviet era looked at Russia as a land of gulags, and then in the 90s saw that there might be some hope and perhaps the prospect of real change in Russia, the attitude now of people in the world is that Russia, well, it's a country that's full of horrors and it will not change.
Nick, what has the American press had to say? Obviously, Washington has a major challenge with this situation.
Well, it does indeed. And I felt this Monday that there was a lack of coverage in the American press. But I can go to the Washington Post, which has an editorial saying, well, the words bounced out at me, and I underlined them there for you. You can see it may be too late to prevent war in Ukraine. Another quote from the editorial board in the Washington Post is, if Ukrainians are forced to fight, Jeannie, for their country, they should be helped. And by that they mean with small arms and a sort of moderate degree of support. To end this time, I want to look at the Huffington Post, which I thought was the comedy page initially, but it didn't turn out to be the case at all. It's a story about Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin. There you can see he wants to annex the moon. So, of course, yes, we can laugh, but there are very serious things at stake here. But the argument for the Russian Deputy Prime Minister is that we don't want to make several trips to the moon. We want to have a permanent base, have a presence in space, and do some mining up there. So, of course, is there any limit to Russian ambition at this point? So this is something we'll be seeing throughout the week, isn't it, Gina?
Thank you so much for that, and Nick Rushworth, for that look at the daily papers. All right, coming up next, all the nitty-gritty of one of the toughest cycling races. That's the infamous Paris-Roubaix, also known as the Hell of the North. That and much more in sports that starts right now.
Paris Saint-Germain suffered just their second defeat of the season in France's Ligue 1 as Jordan Ferry's first half goal handed Lyon a 1-0 victory at the Stade Gélant on Sunday. Saint-Etienne came from 2 goals down to salvage a point at Reims, while Nantes edged past Guingamp. PSG's lead cut to 10 points with just 5 games left to play. In the Netherlands, Ajax are within a cat's whisker of clinching their 33rd league title. On Sunday, they played host to Den Haag, seeking a win and hoping Feyenoord slipped up. And it all started like clockwork as Danish midfielder Christian Poulsen stealed in their first goal on 35 minutes. Den Haag were back on level terms just a minute later when Stefano Densville scored an own goal. Davy Klaassen and South Africa